Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check the Jumbotron first, before attempting to eat a stack of Supreme nachos in one bite. Now you're just a meme that everyone shares on game day. Checking first is smart, so check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed Sponsored Jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
So good, so good, so good.
New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. Fresh kicks, spring tops, new dresses. There's always a score.
I mean, the denim section is unreal.
Why do I rack? All the dresses.
I always find something amazing.
Head to your Nordstrom Rack store to find can't-miss deals on all the spring things. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Hello and welcome into the Birds of the Round Table for another Tuesday night. We have got to kill time until football comes back episode of the podcast. Fortunately, we've got some good stuff to talk about this week. The NFL Combine was this weekend. We're going to dive into winners and losers from the Combine. We've got to react to the Saquon deal. But before we do that, let's introduce the crew. My name's Shane Haff. You can follow me on Twitter at ShaneHaffNFL. Joined by Dibes. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mr. Crockpot. Dibes, how you doing?
Doing well, man. Doing well.
All right. Also joined by Ryan Reese. Give him a follow on Twitter at Philly Sports PSA. Ryan, how are you doing?
Good. Great news earlier today from the Birds, and we're going to be talking about my favorite thing ever, and that's NFL Draft.
All right. And finally, last but not least, joined by David. Give him a follow on Twitter at PHL Eagle News. David, how are you doing this evening?
Doing great. One good thing about covering the Eagles, though, is there really is no downtime. I mean, one day he's releasing Big Play Slay. One day he's releasing Bradbury. Then he's signed in extensions to Saquon Barkley. There's always something to talk about with the Eagles. It has to be one of probably the only franchise I can think of that there is something to talk about literally every single day. Everybody's always doing emergency pods, breaking news. My phone's going off all day long. I mean, it's pretty exciting that you are at a time now where you have a general manager like Howie Roseman who just keeps the entire league on their toes at all times. So it's actually pretty fun. This time of year is nowhere near as boring as it used to be. I guess I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it's an interesting year-round cycle for the league, honestly, and we get free agency kicking off next week, and we'll be able to talk about some legal tampering stuff probably on next week's show. So it is a good time to be a football fan, especially when you have that Lombardi trophy that the Eagles have loaned to Ryan for this episode of the podcast there. So that is it, folks, the real Lombardi right there.
That's it.
All right. Well, let's get into it. Before we get to the Combine, we do have to mention the news that I think it was Adam Schefter broke it. That's at least where I saw it. Maybe somebody else got it first. That the Eagles have given Saquon Barkley a 2-year, $41.2 million contract extension. Ooh. That makes him the highest paid running back in the NFL, in NFL history. It makes him the first $20 million per year running back. It also included $36 million fully guaranteed at signing. Really rare, guys, that you sign a guy to a 3-year deal and then extend him right at the end of the first year of that deal. So well deserved for Saquon Barkley. There was some shenanigans, some misinformation going around on Twitter about how this was going to save the Eagles a tremendous amount of cap space at $13.5 million down to $6.8 million, and that was debunked throughout the day. Saquon was never going to hit the cap for that. It's always been $6.8 million. We don't know what it's going to be like now, but this isn't going to save the Eagles a lot in cap this year. But they do extend Barkley through what I think would be his age 31 season. So, David, what were your thoughts when you saw that news?
I mean, I was excited about it. They rewarded a player who, it's hard to say anybody outperforms their contract when they're making the kind of money that they make, but he outperformed his contract. I mean, he was the best player in the NFL. If MVP wasn't a quarterback, every single year, he would have had it. I mean, he was definitely the MVP of the year. I think what it does also, though, is it spreads the money out further, and it will free up money, even if it's not this year. It gives you it gives you more flexibility to extend Jalen Carter and things like that. And that's where it's going to really pay dividends, down the road, way more so than, 2025, is that it's just a deal that shows that the Eagles are an organization that rewards people who perform well. That's something that a previous general manager for the team, back in the early 2000s did not do. And it was a big reason why a lot of players always walked away from the franchise. So I think it's a move that's in good faith, and it'll pay dividends in extending guys like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter.
Yeah, it is no accident, no coincidence that this was announced a week before free agency starts. Just put that in the minds of pending free agents. If you come here and do well, you'll be rewarded for it, even if we're not obligated to do so. That was definitely a PR move there by Howie and the way that he timed that out. But Ryan, what were your thoughts on the Jalen Carter? Not the Jalen Carter extension, the Saquon Barkley extension.
Yeah, listen, this is a typical Howie move. Howie is always ahead of the curve. No matter what's going on, he knows exactly what's going on. And you're right. There was a lot of misinformation around earlier today. And, again, David said it perfectly. It builds flexibility down the line. And what this also does is Howie always seems to be ahead of the, the market here, whether it's, in the draft and trying to, draft a certain position before they kind of get hot, or giving money to a player before the run, that heads there. There are a few very good running backs that are absolutely going to be getting paid in the next year. And Howie's already ahead of that. And this, again, is all about rewarding what was arguably the greatest running back season of all time for Saquon Barkley. And it's I'm glad to see it, and I'm glad that he has it. And let's move on into free agency. And now we know that we have him for an extra couple of years. This is fantastic news.
I can't wait for GMs to have their takeaway from the Eagles 2024 season to be that you should pay running backs. And then they go pay all these average running backs in free agency, when the real takeaway is pay the generational guy that's being shortchanged by everybody else. But that's beside the point. Maybe the Commanders, Cowboys, you guys go sign some big name running backs. That'll be great. Dives, what were your thoughts when you saw the Barkley news?
My first thought was, I wonder what T.O. was thinking when he saw this news. Could you imagine T.O. getting that kind of extension? We never would have been doing push-ups in the driveway. My second thought is, I just love how Howie is so proactive with the way these things go about, just like everyone mentioned. Whereas that's such a stark contrast to a team like the Dallas Cowboys, who are still picking up the pieces. But yeah, we all know Saquon Barkley is the total package. Whether it's on the field, pass protection, blocking, running, catching, whether that's off the field, just being a total team leader. He is the culture of the Philadelphia Eagles. And we could be looking at the greatest Eagles running back of all time in a pretty short amount of time. He's an Eagle for life. He's made that very clear. That is his MO. It's just awesome. It's a really good look for the franchise. It's a really good look for the franchise, like you said, Shane. And hopefully, this kind of paints a good vibe for the Eagles going forward, where they're going to have to convince some guys to kind of take it on the chin for a year or two, and then we'll say, hey, we'll get you on the other end if you play your ass off. So top to bottom, I love it.
Yeah, if I'm Zach Bond, my price just went up. Seeing what they did for Saquon.
Do you think it's more just Howie paying Saquon on the back end for an amazing season, or do you really think Howie projects the running back market to kind of go and blow up going forward?
Both.
I don't know on that. So the negative side, if you want to flip this over and talk about the potential drawbacks, is you already had Saquon for 2 more years, which would take him through his age 29 season. And so I'm not going to be overly concerned about something until we see the structures. Cause the last year could be totally meaningless with no guarantee. You never know how it's going to be structured. And I trust Howie in that, but I will say, after the Super Bowl win in 2017, Howie got a little bit too much. Let's run it back with the old guys. And you get the ghost of Alshon Jeffrey and some other moves there. And in 2022, they chose to bring Bradbury back, which Bradbury was great in 2022 and he fell off a cliff, and that happens. And it was it didn't pay off. I didn't mind the process there, but we do know that Howie has a hard time letting go of players sometimes. And it's not that you were even going to let Saquon go. But there is some concern on that with, how is Saquon? Are you going to want to be paying Saquon that when he's 30 years old and 31 years old? Is he going to be worth that? Running backs traditionally aren't, but by the same token, we don't even know that they're tied into it until we see that structure. So it is something that's it can be concerning. I wouldn't be too concerned about it, but I am very interested to see how they structured this deal when we get that out. So, all right. Anybody else? Any thoughts on Saquon before we get into the combine?
Well deserved, man. Well deserved.
Yeah, well deserved, indeed.
Well deserved. Hopefully this time next week, we're talking about a Zach Bond contract as well. I'm going to speak that into existence. Mm-hmm. Tampering will almost be over by the time we record next week. I need Zach Bond's contract announced before then. But all right, well, let's flip it over to the combine. And NFL Combine was this weekend. Obviously, some of you guys might have watched. Some of you didn't. Maybe you're relying on us to tell you what we saw. And so we're going to do that. We're going to each give you 2 losers from the combine. And then at the end, we'll flip it over and each give you 2 winners from the combine. Just to give you an idea of where guys' stock may have risen and fallen over the event. So, David, I'll throw it to you first. Give me your first loser from the combine.
One of the guys who I thought struggled was Tez Johnson, wide receiver. I was excited to watch him after watching him at Oregon this year, where he was elusive. He made defenders look really bad in open space. I was disappointed in his 40 time, mainly because if you're that small and light, you better be fast. And he weighed in at 154 pounds, and he did well in the 3-cone drill, which was exciting. I think he posted a 6.65, which led the wide receiver class. But I think a lot is going to fall on his pro day, or he's going to keep falling down. Because a lot of people thought, that he was, potentially like a top 10 wide receiver in this class. And I don't see that anymore. People were, having a lot of crazy comps like Zay Flowers, et cetera, but struggling the way he did in Indianapolis definitely hurt his stock.
All right. So Tez Johnson gets I don't even know what we call it. He gets the loser stamp. It's not the stamp of approval.
I'm just saying he struggled.
That sounds so mean. David's too nice. David probably would object to us terming this winners and losers. This is we're all going to name 2 losers from the combine, and David's going to name 2 guys that struggled a little bit. But Ryan, I'll throw it over to you next. Give me your guy that struggled a little bit.
This one kind of hurts my heart because, listen, I've been pumping up this guy all year, honestly, since the moment I found out about him and started watching him. And that's Harold Fanning Jr. He was my number 2 tight end coming out of Bowling Green. He struggled at the combine, to put it mildly. This is a guy that is huge production monster. on the field. 117 catches, over 1,400 yards. Just absolute monster at Bowling Green. Played really well against the likes of Penn State and Texas A&M, some larger schools. And just, did not show his athleticism out there. Looked a little lethargic, honestly. Didn't really have that wow factor that I really thought was going to shine. So he definitely slid a little bit in my rankings and definitely in my overall. But hopefully, again, it's all part of the process. Doesn't necessarily mean, he's not going to be a good player, but his stock definitely fell.
All right. So Harold Fanning Jr. there, a guy who struggled just a wee little bit. Dibes, I'll throw it over to you. Give me one of your guys who struggled this. I'm definitely going to make that the name of the podcast now. Winners and guys who struggled a little bit.
So great. I respect David's take on that. That's so great. I'll go Jay Higgins, a guy that I routinely mock drafted to the Birds on day 3 pretty consistently and just got his draft stock murdered. One of the worst performances in combine history. All season long, I was really impressed with his play, especially in coverage. And it just did not translate at the combine. He weighed in at 224 pounds, making him one of the lightest players of his position group in Indy. He also tested near the bottom of the group in most of the drills. He had the shortest broad jump by a wide margin, 9'2". That was a full 5 inches shorter than the next lowest. He had a 33-inch broad jump, third worst among linebackers, a 4.82 40-yard dash, the slowest of the group. And he had an RAS score of 6.98. All in all, you can officially take him off the Eagles draft board, as they typically will look at athletes at that position. I just feel bad for the dude, really.
All right. Oh, there you have it. I am going to go with a guy. I should have looked this up. I'm pretty sure I mentioned him on our Armchair Scouts, our first episode, the 5 potential first-round targets for the Eagles. And it's offensive lineman Wyatt Meelam out of West Virginia. He sat at 42nd overall on the consensus big board, which is just a compilation of a whole bunch of different sites' rankings. And he'd been flirting with first-round status. His combine probably took him out of that conversation because he played left tackle at West Virginia, and his arm length of 32.13 inches puts him in the 25th percentile or so for arm length. And that's for a guy that otherwise just didn't have standout size. His relative athletic score, which I'm a huge fan of, it's just painted yellow. He's 7.85 overall, 79th percentile vertical and broad, 56th percentile 40, a 71st percentile shuttle. For a guy that isn't going to have standout size to also not stand out athletically, he's just not going to be drafted as a first-round tackle. He's probably going to be drafted as a day 2 interior offensive lineman at this point, with maybe the upside to kick outside, but Wyatt Meelam's measurables and his testing didn't do him any favors, and I think he's probably out of first-round consideration after the combine. So, all right, we'll throw it around a second time here to David. David, give me your second guy that struggled just a little bit.
This one hurts my feelings a little bit. This is a guy who I watched at Ohio State, a guy who went back to school to go there. And my first time I watched him, I wrote notes that he had an explosive first step. He had a great burst. He was a finisher. He set the edge well. He was a 3-down player. And he displayed elite balance. And then when I watched him at the combine, he lost his footing numerous times. Did not look like he displayed elite balance. I'd always questioned the fit with the Eagles just due to the fact that he was more of a production guy than like a traits and tools kind of guy that they normally go with. but he struggled there. Then he didn't run the 40-yard dash. Then he didn't perform any of the other testings. And it is curious to see him bow out like that. And then when he measured with amongst the shortest arms in the edge class, I just think it just went all downhill, just kind of spiraled for him there. Again, I watch a lot of these guys and I talk to other people about them a lot of times. And anytime I've seen somebody struggle like that, a lot of scouts will just look at you and say, trust the tape. Don't just, throw this out. It's an outlier. Don't worry about it. But that's not exactly what everybody was saying about this time. So I don't know. I don't know what his struggles are. I think some of the measurements that the Senior Bowl had did not jive with the measurements in Indianapolis. They were vastly different. Some arm length, some height, some weight. I mean, there was a lot of that. Go ahead. Hands, yes. I mean, it was very curious. So I think it sets back a player like him a lot, because I think he had been built up to be maybe a little more than people thought, and now he's might drop to even further than he should. Because I do think if you look at the tape, he's a very productive player. He'll be a productive guy in the NFL, but I do think that, probably hurt his standings with a lot of teams, the way the measurables and bowing out of the rest of the competition after he struggled some. Just wasn't a good look overall.
No.
All right. Ryan, throw it over to you again. Give me your other guy that struggled.
This one I know will make Dives extremely happy. I'm going to go with Ohio State quarterback Will Howard. Yeah, he was coming off the national championship. He shut Dives up multiple times on that playoff run. I was loving life, and then the combine happened, and he struggled everywhere. I mean, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. It was really bad. Accuracy was all over the place. Couldn't hit the downfield. He just had the a terrible broad jump, vertical jump. Just didn't test well. Didn't look well. I mean, yeah, he absolutely cost himself millions of dollars. He might have fooled somebody into taking him perhaps in day 2, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore. I think he's a solid day 3 guy. And yeah, it's already a weak class as is. So.
All right. So the Will Howard debate, is that the final blow between you guys?
I mean, there's always the NFL, right?
That's fair. That's fair. All right, Dives, throw it over to you. Give me your other guy that struggled a little bit.
And as I always do, I'm cheating for my second reveal. Heading into the combine, the 2 positions I was most excited about were running back and tight end. One of them blew it out of the water. The other one, the tight end group, really struggled, mostly because some guys at the top didn't really do anything. But this is a tight end group that really doesn't have a tight end 3, a unanimous tight. Like after Loveland and after Warren, it's really wide open based on what you're looking for. And really, there was not a lot of noise. It was a somewhat disappointing group. Terrence Ferguson, widely considered day 3 guy, was the most notable guy in that group. You had guys like CJ Dupree out of Alabama. You had guys like Joshua Simon out of South Carolina. Had a really good day, but overall, nobody really stepped up. And that's kind of my take, is that whereas the running back class looked so deep and so good, guys, we could be talking 10, 15 running backs in this class. The tight end group was not as deep and not as strong as I thought it would be.
All right. So Dibes picking the entire tight end group, and we're about after the show to go record our tight end rankings. So maybe we should have done that a week ago. Maybe it would have been a little more hyped up. All right. Well, for my last guy, I'm going to say this here while it's a safe space because Mark's probably not listening. But I'm going to go with interior defensive lineman Deion Walker from Kentucky. He is 46th on the consensus big board. This is the guy Mark had number 1 on last week's Armchair Scouts episode. I had a 3rd round grade on him. And one of the positives I noted for him was that he was surprisingly athletic for his size. Well, his athletic testing fell short. He didn't run the 40. He had a 16th percentile vertical jump at 25 inches and a 50th percentile broad jump at 8 foot 8 inches. And I mean, if he had run a slow 40, you can discount that a bit because defensive tackles don't run 40 yards and they don't come out of a sprinter stance. But the jumps are a good baseline that measure explosiveness. That's what teams use it for. If you've ever wondered, why do teams care how high or how far a defensive tackle can jump? It is a base level measurement for explosiveness, and he just didn't have it. 16th and 50th percentile. And so this is a guy that the selling point is that he's like super athletic. He's a freak, and he just wasn't at the combine. And so that didn't do anything to sway my concerns about him when I watched him. And I think that was, I mean, you needed to see a lot better performance from him. So Deion Walker is my last guy that struggled just a little bit, to use David's terminology. So there you have it, guys. That is our 8 guys who struggled. Now we'll flip over. David, we can call these guys winners. Is that good?
Yes.
All right. Combine winners. Because we don't want to just be negative. We want to highlight some of the good performances too. So David, lead us off here with your first combine winner.
Exclusively on ESPN Plus, UFC 313, Saturday. Reigning light heavyweight champion Alex Pereira defends his title against number 1 contender Magomed Ankalaev, and an explosive lightweight bout between Justin Gaethje and Rafael Pazzi. UFC 313, Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Buy it on ESPNplus.com/PPV.
The guy who I was most impressed with was Matthew Golden. He's a player that a lot of people have been surprised to see on a lot of first round boards, but even to those who were a fan of him, he somehow even exceeded those expectations at the combine. He ran the fastest 40 time at 4.29, and he was what is he, 5'11", 191, takes off like a rocket. I mean, every play that he does is always quick. He has a wide catch radius, elite ball tracking skills. He can play every single wide receiver spot on the line. He runs really, really nice routes. He's loyal to a fault. I don't know if y'all saw the segment where they were asking the wide receivers if you could play catch with anybody alive or dead, who would you choose? He chose his own quarterback there in Texas, Quinn, which was kind of funny. But he is just exceeding all expectations. It wouldn't surprise me if he ends up being a top 2 wide receiver in this draft.
All right. So Matthew Golden for David. Ryan, who is your first big winner from the combine?
I'm going to go with a cornerback from Texas, Jahdae Barron. He absolutely killed the combine, ran a 4.40, a 4.440. So too many 40s or too many 4s, sorry. He honestly, from a lot of reports saying that he interviewed really well, in the team interviews. And he really just kind of had himself, a nice time there in Indianapolis, really, improved his stock that was already on the rise, mind you. So this is certainly going to do wonders for him and him getting into and solidifying himself in this combine and this draft.
All right. Dibes, who do you have on tap for your first winner?
I'm surprised Ryan didn't go linebacker because that's where I'm going. For me, it's John Campbell out of Alabama. Just was sensational. Arguably the biggest winner of his group. 4.52, 40-yard dash, 10'7" broad jump. I think his RES score was like 9.8 something out of 10. He looked balanced. He looked clean on the on-field drills. Ridiculous acceleration. He's just a freak athlete. And, you combine all of that with his elite pass rushing skills, and he's just separating himself from everyone else. 6'3", 235 pounds. This guy is every bit a first-round talent. I had him as, I think, like in my top 20 before the combine. He's like some other guys are about to talk about. He's definitely moving on up. It'll be interesting to see how positional value impacts where he is selected, but I think he is just got tremendous upside.
All right. Well, for my first winner, I'm going to go to South Carolina and go with safety Nick Emanware. He was 28th on consensus big boards heading into the combine. He's a former high school linebacker who looks like one. All right, he's 6'3", 220 pounds. That's pretty big for a safety. It's 98th and 95th percentile, respectively. But he didn't test like a linebacker. A lot of times you get those guys, and they're like box safeties. And he had a 43-inch vertical that's 99th percentile among safeties, an 11.6 broad jump that's 99th percentile. He ran a 4.38 40, which is 99th percentile. And overall, he ended with the coveted 10.0 relative athletic score, which means for his size and position, he's literally the most athletic safety that's ever tested at the combine. And I put big stock into relative athletic scores. I think it's a great way to condense that set. Because, I mean, people know, football fans know, like, hey, a 4.3 40 is good. People don't have any idea. If I told you they ran like a 6.7 3-cone, nobody knows if that's good or not. But put it all on a 10-point scale. That's what I like. And so he blew that out of the water. He's going to go flying up draft boards, and a lot of it's just going to be on the back of his athleticism at being a very large safety. He's going to come off the board in the first round.
Remember last week I said he might be the best safety in this class. He might go ahead of Malachi Starks.
Yeah.
Do y'all think he passed him? Do you think he leapfrogged him there?
I definitely think there's a really good chance.
What was the difference in one of the testing he did? It was something crazy different between him and Starks. I can't remember what it was. It was like
Starks
like a jump, maybe like it was 10 different or something.
It was probably the broad jump. Yeah, it was Starks's testing numbers were really wonky. Like in a couple areas, he was like mid-tier, like 70th percentile, but the others he was like 100th.
I think it was like a 10-foot difference or something insane like that. Like it was just a crazy difference.
Yeah. I still think Malachi Starks is every bit a first-round talent.
100%. Yeah.
But yeah, like I said last week, I'm just all in on Emanware and Malachi Starks, man. I know the Eagles will never, ever draft them in the first round, but they are just studs.
And to piggyback on Brian's guy, Barron, man, if they didn't already have Cooper at the slot, or if they were confident enough that they could put him outside, which I just don't know that you could make that move, but he is unquestionably the best nickel cover corner in this draft. I mean, that guy, I liked Mike Sanders last year. I thought the guy was just amazing, but man, Barron looks even better than that, man. I mean, I'd be shocked if he's not going in the first round as well.
I will riot if the Eagles move Cooper DeJean out of the slot.
Yeah, I can't see it happening.
I better not.
So I have their combine testing side by side. Starks ran a 4.5. Emanware ran a 4.38. The vertical jump, Emanware had 43 inches and Starks had 33 inches.
Yeah,
33.
And then they didn't share any other drills. Starks didn't do the broad or the bench. Emanware didn't do the 3-cone or the shuttle. So
you know what's terrible about that? 43-inch vertical. I don't know if I'm confident in saying that I have a 3-inch vertical. Maybe I do. I don't know.
I know that in high school basketball, before I injured my back, I had a 30-inch vertical, and that was impressive to me.
Well, yeah. I'm not talking about high school. Yeah.
Oh, no, I know.
I have dunked a basketball before in my life.
Nerf goal doesn't count.
No, nor does 2K. In an actual game. Thank you.
Of my player.
I am 6'3", by the way.
Yeah, that's fair. Us 5'7" guys, we never had a chance.
Yeah, I was going to say, you do remember when we met each other and I towered over the two of you guys?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
There's a picture floating around somewhere. Ryan's wearing some sweet overalls.
which, by the way, I have retired.
Whoa.
He turned them into those shower curtains behind him. Right?
They went out on top of the Super Bowl, huh?
If you look closely, you'll notice that the
they're made of jean material.
Super Bowl.
That's the beer stain from Week 12, and that's the nacho stain of the Dolphins game. And
each one of these says 52 Super Bowl champion. I'll have to get the new 59 added to it. But
I just ordered a hoodie today with the Super Bowl logo on it. It's not that one.
Look at him. He's finally.
I've been waiting for my moment. I got it. That was.
You kidding me? I've probably spent over $2,000 worth of crap.
I was really disappointed with the Super Bowl hats because that's what I was going to get.
This is the only one I got. I'm a flex fit guy, so this is the only decent one that I found.
Yeah, it's like the one they wore on the field was like gray, and I was like, no, and I didn't really like a lot of the official merch, and so I kind of waited, and I saw some other non-official stuff start popping up, and I found a half zip hoodie I liked. So
there you go.
Whenever it gets here from China in 3 months, I'll wear it and show you guys on the show. So
I was gonna say I retired the overalls, but I bought new ones that say Super Bowl champions on the pouch. So
nice.
Don't worry, folks. I'll be back.
All right. Well, now that we've clarified wardrobe things, let's get into our last winner. You guys never know where this show is going to go. That's why you love it. David, give me your last winner from the Combine.
I went with one of my favorite players, Bashal Tutin. I've loved him as a fit for the Eagles for months. After his performance in Indianapolis, sadly, they're going to have a lot more competition for his services than I originally thought. He exceeded my expectations. He ran the fastest 40 at 4.32. He was first overall in the running back class with the 40.5-inch vertical jump. His 40-yard dash time was faster than that of Saquon Barkley's years ago and the Lions' speedy running back Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a home run threat every time he touches the ball. He's also a very valuable special teams player. He told us on Media Day in Blacksburg that he chose to transfer to Tech to show his talents, and he thought that Virginia Tech, he believed that they gave him the best opportunity to do that, and for him to earn a invitation to the Senior Bowl, which was a big goal of his on a personal level. So he made that. He got the invite. He showed off there in Mobile. He did it again in Indianapolis. He's a great person, and when teams start to speak with him, he's going to interview very well. He's just a really good guy who I think that all teams are going to want to have somebody like him in the locker room. And if the Eagles want to use a fourth, fifth, I don't know, somewhere around 120-ish pick on a running back, I don't know what their plans are now. Maybe they don't want to give any money to somebody, a free agent like Kenny Gainwell at this point, since the running back room's got so much money in there. Maybe they do go with a draft pick there. Howie's going to be able to move all around the board, so I'm not worried about him netting extra picks to do that. But it'll be exciting. He's a really good player, and I'm happy that he performed the way he did. So I've been waiting to see this, so I was very excited to see him do as well as he did.
All right. Ryan, throw it over to you. Give me your last winner.
This one's tough. I have a couple here, but I'm going to go with a dude that I just think would be absolutely amazing here. And that is a Georgia Bulldog, Tate Ratledge, guard here, had an insane athleticism score, had a sub 540, which was I think fourth fastest among linemen. He had the best 3-cone. He had third in broad jump, so he was tops in most events at the Combine. And dude is just a mauler. He's just look at that guy. I mean, come on. How do you not want that dude shotgun and beers with Landon Dickerson and Saquon Barkley? I mean, that sounds like a party to me. This guy absolutely is one of my favorite players in the draft, just on attitude alone and aura. But this guy is actually a really good player. And should we have a need at guard, depending on how free agency goes, I would love to spend a pick on Tate Ratledge and bring him here under Stoutland U.
He also won Best Mellet in Show, which was pretty impressive.
Oh, wow, yeah,
but if you watched his interviews, they asked him how fun it was going up against Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith in practice, and he was like, "Oh, it sucked." And then he was like, "No, I didn't mean that. I mean, it was fun going against them, but that's the kind of guard you want, man. I mean, he's battle tested. He went against these guys, in practice every single day. So yeah, I love that guy. Ryan and I were talking earlier about how I'm pretty sure that Pete Incaviglia is his long lost father.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
But definitely best mullet in show. I love the video that NFL Films did where it said, I don't know, hair flow in slow mo or something. It showed him running, and you just see the hair just flowing. It's a great video if you can find it on Twitter or X or whatever. But yeah, great one, Ryan. I would love to see him on the Eagles.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
All right, Dives. That brings us to you. Give me another one of your winners.
Who are you going to cheat with now?
Give me what position group won the combine for
what coach?
The running back class, the entire class.
Yeah, what coach had a good combine?
The Eagles are no doubt going to go in the trenches, probably back to back in the first and second round. But if they don't, the guy that I thought was the biggest winner, he was number 8 on my cornerback ranking. But I'm going with Kentucky before the combine, but that's going to change big time after the combine. I'm going with Kentucky's cornerback, Maxwell Hairston. We talk about athleticism all night long, but this guy killed it. He had a 9.71 RAS score. He just checked off all the boxes in terms of measurables, a 4.28 40-yard dash, a 10-yard shuffle within 1.5 seconds, nearly a 40-inch vert, a 10.9 broad. Overall, I thought one of the biggest winners of the weekend, a guy that went from day 2 to day 1. I think that's pretty much a lock. Again, I had him number 8 on my cornerback rankings, and there's some good ones in this draft, and I thought he really stood out. He's got elite change of direction speed, fluid hips, explosive, does really well in zone. I know that, again, the Eagles are probably going to get an edge or a defensive tackle, but if they're looking for an outside cornerback with good size and a guy that can fit Vic Fangio's system, you're looking at him. He can jump routes. He has excellent ball skills, 6 interceptions and 10 pass deflections the last 2 years at Kentucky. He's aggressive, good awareness. He had 2 pick sixes in one game, and I just feel like he's got Eagles written all over him. I don't think he's even going to be there in round 2 if the Eagles are interested in Maxwell Hairston. But I thought, pound for pound, he was a huge winner.
And if you like a finger wag swag, like Jalen Mills, that dude has it, man. I mean, that dude is a complete vibe. He is an aggressive corner. I think he only allowed 12 receptions last year. I think he played 7 games, but yeah, that guy is amazing. He's one of my favorite targets for the Eagles as well. Back-to-back Tate Ratledge and Maxwell Hairston. Man, that would be all 3 of them. Bashal Tootin and Shane, whoever you're picking, let's go for the.
That's fine. Shane's got my guy too. Literally, Nick ain't worry, and Shane's other guy are my guys too.
The Eagles have no chance to get Shamar Stewart. So he's my other winner. Edge rusher out of Texas A&M. He was 34th on the consensus big board. He's going to be a first round pick. He's probably going to go top 10. 6'5", 267 pounds, which was down from his 290-pound listing at Texas A&M. And he destroyed the combine. 40-inch vertical, 10-11 broad jump, a 4.5 40. All those were at least 96th percentile for his position group. And he had a 1.58 10-yard split, which is the second fastest by a 265-plus pound defender in the last 15 years. Overall, he had a 10.0 relative athletic score. Next Gen Stats pulled the athletic comparison of Myles Garrett. He is a half-inch taller, 5 pounds lighter, 0.05 of a second faster on the 40. has 1 inch less on the vertical and 3 inches more on the broad jump. So anytime your athletic profile is Myles Garrett, that's a good starting point. That does not mean he's going to be Myles Garrett, but athleticism is a huge deal for edge rushers, and he has that in spades. He went from a first-round pick to a likely top 10 pick, and he made himself a lot of money at the combine and took himself entirely out of the Eagles' range, I think.
If you're following this show, I've said it for months that I feel like he was one of the biggest Eagles targets. And I agree, Shane. He's got top 10, top 15 written all over him now. It just sucks. That's actually, it sucks.
Yeah. It's great for him, though. Great for him.
Yeah.
Go get your money. Go get your money and be great in the AFC.
There's always guys that I'm really high on during the season, and then this happens, and then they just blow up. Last year, my guy was Mike Samerstill, if you guys remember. I loved him, and blows up, and he had a terrific year for the Commanders. So,
congratulations, Shamar Stewart. You are a Carolina Panther. All right. Well, that is going to do it, guys. Our biggest winners and guys who struggled just a little bit at the 2025 Combine. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Remember, we're going to keep coming to you guys on Tuesday nights. Next week, hopefully we'll have some free agency tampering news to talk about for the Eagles or just around the division as a whole. But let's throw it around the horn and get final thoughts, and we'll get out of here. David, I'll throw it to you first again. Final thoughts, man. Plug anything you've got coming out.
Yeah, you can follow everything I do. I posted at PHL Eagle News and Philly Sports Network. This week, I have 2 pieces out for them, 5 winners on offense from the Combine and 5 defensive winners from the Combine and offensive winners from the Combine. No strugglers, just 10 winners. You can go read about them. But yeah, and just follow everything everybody else is doing here. And thank you guys so much for keeping up with us during the off season. Even though it seems like there won't be much to talk about, like I led with at the beginning of the show, there's going to be content every single week because this team just always gives you something to discuss.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Be sure you are following David. He's got great stuff on Twitter at PHL Eagle News. Ryan, what about you, man?
Yeah. Make sure you guys are obviously following everybody here. Make sure you guys are following Eagles Pin Pull Network. If you haven't already, make sure you're following on all of the socials. Leave a 5-star review. All that stuff honestly means the world to us. It helps us grow our show. It helps us get it out there. Share it to your friends, your family, your enemies, your neighbors, whoever. I will be. We'll obviously be right after this. Armchair Scouts tomorrow. I also have Football Smack Talk show at 5:30. Somebody finally told me that I should create an Instagram account for my jerseys. For anybody who doesn't know, that I'm trying to get a jersey from 0 all the way to 99. So if you're interested in seeing all the jerseys I have and the journey that I'm taking, go give it a follow. It's the Hunt for 100 Eagles. Give it a follow. Yeah.
Do you wear your Bryce Huff jersey frequently, or?
It is a DeAndre Swift jersey, thank you, and not that often.
Ryan's on the hunt for 100 jerseys, and I'm wearing this Eagles hoodie I bought 9 years ago. Oh, man. All right. Yeah, be sure you give Ryan a follow on Twitter at Philly Sports PSA. You can check out his Instagram as well. Dibes, what about you, man?
Going live right after this, talking tight ends. I feel like our first few shows have been pretty chalk, talking about a lot of the same guys. But I think there's going to be some fun differences between us with the tight end group. So be on the lookout for that. We're going live momentarily. Channeled my inner David last weekend. I also did nothing but winners on all the position groups from the Combine. I have videos on all the position groups with highlights and things like that. Go check that out. And last night, I do want to say we did our Howie's on Crack mock draft. David, ready for this?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Round 1, we took Travion Henderson. No trades. Round 1, we took Travion Henderson. Round 2, we went with Jalen Noel, wide receiver, Iowa State, who I like a lot, by the way.
Which was the only quasi okay draft pick that he had.
And then round 3, this was a 3-round mock. Round 3, we went Jackson Dart.
That's interesting.
There it is. I love how immediately after this draft, the next day, he signed Saquon to a extension. Basically to tell Dimes it ain't happening, pal.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, be sure you are following Dibes on Twitter at Mr. Crockpot as well. You can follow me at Shane Huff NFL. Be sure you keep it tuned in to the Eagles Pin Pull Network. 5-star ratings and reviews are greatly appreciated to help us get the show out there as we make our way through free agency and the draft and into the 2025 Super Bowl repeat campaign. So be sure you're following all these guys on Twitter, and we will catch you guys next time. Go Birds.